right. It is time for the one, the only movie night extravaganza. I'm mixing my Protonic intro for this. I've got a totally different intro for that show. Hello, I'm Conan Neutron. This is a hostile takeover by Andy and I of
yes.
Forrest.
Yes, one might even say some kind of coup.
Yeah, exactly. One might say such a thing. Tonight we're going to be talking about the incredible One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Oh, I suppose he normally plays the trailer immediately afterwards, huh? Screw it. We're going to do it this way. Kristina.
Do it live.
We'll do it live. Kristina Oakes.
Hello.
Friend of the show. Featured guest.
I'm off my meds. Just kidding.
And also off her meds. Welcome to the show. It's always lovely to have you. Very excited to have you on for this. We're going to be joined by Marina Dove a little bit later on, who is currently streaming somewhere else, as is our host Forrest, the host of this show, Movie Night Extravaganza. J. Andrew World. Hello. How are
Howdy.
you?
I'm good. I've been drawing all day.
Good.
That's a good thing.
That's all you got to say. That's
really,
I agree. It's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's very healthy for my mental health.
In summation, drawing good. Yeah, murder bad.
Exactly. I'm drawing. I'm not killing people.
I of course am the other co-host / interim co-host. I guess the line of succession, it goes like vice president, speaker of the house, senate pro tempore, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be the senate pro tempore on that. Conan Neutron, Protonic Reversal, Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is the best movie show on the internet, hands down. Thank you for watching it. Let's take a look at this incredible movie. By the way, I absolutely love One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's
absolutely, it's
one of my favorites
for a reason.
It's so good. Yeah. So let's take a look at the trailer. And I've actually this is I've not seen this trailer, so this is going to be new for me, and I'm okay with that. I think that this is a good thing. You get a fresh take. And let's see the trailer for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Not a cold open in any way, shape, or form for us. Sorry about that. / not sorry. All right. Will it play eventually? We'll see. Here it is. There we go. That's the preview. That's the preview for this incredible film, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Welcome, Marina Dove, to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel like I just saw you, but in a good way.
Yeah. 2 back-to-back, double feature.
Exactly. That's the thing. You don't come on for a while, and then you gotta do a double feature. It's how we work around here.
I love it. Yeah, happy to be here.
How do we feel about that preview? Like, do we think that it kind of doesn't show enough and also shows too much, which is quite the mean feat.
You get a sense of the type of character Jack Nicholson is playing. Very rambunctious, rebellious, anti-establishment in the way, and he doesn't feel like he actually belongs there.
Right. Yeah, and that's I think that's notable. This is an outsider movie, right? I think that's something that one of the reasons kind of why it connected with people, just like how the book did, is because it is like a bit of a freaks, nerds, and weirdos outsider movie for sure. I guess I'll just be the one to rip into it. It kind of sucks. The reason why he's there is statutory rape.
Yeah.
Whoops.
He's a real bad guy. Yeah.
Not great.
They left that part out of the trailer.
Yeah, they left that. They didn't lead with that in the trailer for sure. Marina, do you feel like that's what do you feel about that trailer? You think it's a good trailer? Is that good? Do you like it?
Yeah, I came in for like the last little bit of it because I was trying to finagle everything. But yeah, I think I thought it was a good trailer.
Yeah, this is a hard movie to make a trailer for, and not the least of which is, spoiler alert for a movie that is, like whatever, like older than I am, I think. It's got kind of a twist at the end, right? And you don't want to reveal that, but how do you adequately sort of? It's not like exactly a feel-good movie necessarily.
No, not at all.
But it's a great movie. Andy, how do you feel about all that?
I really enjoy it. I always want to try to put it in the cultural milieu of the 70s. As people are because the one thing I was thinking about, why Jack Nicholson works so well in this movie, and it's his anger. Like that's the one word you can always use to describe Jack Nicholson in whatever movie he's in, from the Joker to Anger Management, is anger. And this movie,
well, it better be an Anger Management, or
I know, right?
Truth in Advertising, you know.
But this is the one movie which like focuses it like to like such a degree where like there is a reason why Jack Nicholson has this air of being a great actor, because let's face it, most movies he just kind of phones it in. And there's a few movies out there, this Chinatown, some of his earlier stuff. He certainly did not phone it in. The Shining, another great one. But for the most part, he just kind of phoned it in and would just like, okay, here's the scene where I'm actually going to act, and crank it up, and that's all you get out of him.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to actually see him in one of these just good roles. But like you couldn't put like say Robin Williams in this part, because he's not angry enough to pull off this character.
He has that resting state of dude's anger that like whatever at a certain
maybe
time
Pacino,
of my life,
but you know.
Yeah, early Pacino for sure. But I think that so that's interesting. It's funny, also funny that you invoked all these movies that where he wasn't necessarily a great actor, and then you only mention movies where he's a great actor and his acting performance is fantastic. I love that. But I take the point, and we can all think of the sorts of movies, especially like those late period cash-ins and stuff like that, where it's like, all right. And of course, welcome to the show, the host of the show, Forrest Miller.
What's going on?
Hey man, I know you're a busy guy. How did the other thing go? Was that good?
It went well. I don't know. I'm brain dead from watching too many Cronenberg movies yesterday though. Can we watch the trailer to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest again, so I can get into the state of mind where
well, wait, the Cronenberg movie should have put you in the state of mind to be in a mental institution.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to watch it again, huh? All right, that's a bold aesthetic choice.
What? I feel like I need to, bookend podcast.
You know what? I'll second that, because I was like in the middle of like rating in and figuring out all my shit, so I didn't actually get to see it all the way. So let's watch it again. Apparently, it's a Bolshevik democracy over here, so let's do it. It is.
I thought it was a coup. Turns out it was a Bolshevik democracy. Who knew? Wait.
It's the Cultural Revolution. It's literally both those things at the same time.
Exactly. Talk all about it.
But that's Prince's Band, right?
Yes. Thank you.
That's right, suckers.
The music really makes the trailer work and the movie work, but that like
Saw, right?
Yeah, not the movie Saw, which would be an entirely different soundtrack.
No. But they're playing, it's the movie Saw sped up, and that's how they got the soundtrack for this movie.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's we were debating about whether that is a trailer that shows too much or whether it doesn't show nearly enough. Just contextless, it seems like Jack Nicholson's character is just a guy that really likes watching TV, so that's interesting. But there's you can't that whole back 20 minutes. How are you gonna talk about that in a trailer?
But it also doesn't show like the true nature of Nurse Ratched at all. Like she's
even a little bit, not even a little bit. Exactly.
I'm like,
Oh, they got a nice nurse there. Right on. There's a
she's,
place with a nice nurse.
quite the ratchet. You know what I mean?
Anyway, so I didn't actually mention what episode this is because I have no freaking idea. But yeah, this
episode
is
72.
I guess we're just going to read the first 10 minutes. So that's cool. Episode 72, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
You going to introduce us now, Forrest?
Really, you guys? The one thing that I was really happy about for this not getting here on time, I was like, oh, thank God, I'm not going to be the one that has to do the introductions. But
no, I did all the introducctions. I
just didn't introduce. We're already doing everything over again,
I mean, we're literally redoing the show. Like, I don't know why we even bothered starting it on time.
Yeah.
But Marina did not, of course, get an introduction. We love Marina. Thank you so much for coming back, Marina.
Thank you for having me.
The internet's Marina Dove, as she is known.
Yeah. Resident hot girl.
Resident, yeah, exactly. And she was the only one that didn't get a proper introduction, other than you, because you weren't here, and I introduced you as the host of the show, and I think that's a pretty good introduction. It's funny and it's true.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, this isn't weird at all. So yeah, this is one of my favorite movies. But we talked a little bit about it kind of sucks the way why McMurphy is in there, right? That's sort of a also book versus movie. It centers McMurphy, whereas the book does not. It's from Chief's perspective, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, so that's also an interesting story. And Chief is absolutely, to my taste anyway, the best character, right? Has to be.
Yeah.
But also, if you're writing as Chief, you can't really do the big reveal, or you're centering Chief. You can't really do the big reveal where he actually can talk. I think cinematically, that is a much more interesting reveal in this movie than it would have been if the whole movie was from his perspective.
And Jack Nicholson is a bankable movie star as well, right? So if at this point, he was considered young up and comer. And for good reason, because he was a killer at it. And again, as we were talking about, it wouldn't be the same with a Robin Williams or an Al Pacino or whoever in that role.
Robert De Niro.
Yeah, because Jack Nicholson is actually crazy. He's the only mentally ill one in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what's funny is that it doesn't feel like he's acting, right?
No.
The whole cast is like that because Danny DeVito and Vincent Schiavelli and Christopher Lloyd,
Christopher Lloyd, who once was not an old man.
Yes.
Right.
He's been openly elderly since the Reagan administration, I believe.
Right, exactly. He was up there with
and is apparently joining the Mandalorian season 3. I don't know. I just got that news on Twitter. It said,
really?
Christopher Lloyd is trending, and I was like, oh no, is he dead? And it was he's joining.
He's never gonna die. Let's be real here. He's gonna outlive us all.
It's him and the cockroaches.
Him at the end of time.
But yeah, I mean, this is an ensemble cast.
Yeah, I forgot Chucky's in this movie.
Chucky is absolutely in this movie. This is I don't believe Brad Dourif got a nomination for this, but he probably should have. I would say.
Absolutely.
And so this year, so he won. Jack Nicholson won for Chinatown, and won Best Picture. Is that right for us? I know you were kind of.
He also won Best Actor.
He won Best Actor. Was it for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Or this is what he was doing, 3 masterpieces a year, right?
Yeah,
That's why this guy
Louise Fletcher won for Best Actress too.
Gotcha. Okay.
The clip that I was playing last night, where they did the remote thing where they introduced him from the actual psychiatric hospital for Chinatown. I think that was the BAFTA Awards. I don't think that was the Oscars.
Well, the clip you played last night was definitely that, but it did win some stuff, right? Why am I get to look this up? I guess I'm doing.
But also too, this was originally a novel, but also was adapted into a play.
Yes.
And when it
really
came to casting,
play.
Yeah, when it came to casting, Danny DeVito played his role on Broadway. And so when they were looking at actors, they knew that he did it so well that they put him in the movie.
So it got Academy Award for Best Actor in a Leading Role, Jack Nicholson, 1976. Academy Award for Best Picture, Michael Douglas and Saul Zaentz. That's interesting. John Fogerty's enemy. Academy Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role, it's Louise Fletcher. And Golden Globe for Brad Dourif. No Academy Award for.
Also Academy Award for Best Director.
And best writing as well for adapted screenplay. Yeah. So Milos Forman.
It is in the Library of Congress. This film.
Yeah.
It has significance.
Yeah. It's considered one of the best films of all time. It really is on that list.
It's very influential. It's been used in pop culture reference, as in an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Sweet D has a heart attack.
If anyone's worried, wondering about Kristina's username, that's what that is. Yeah.
Yes.
Brad Dourif, by the way, was nominated, so at least
he was nominated but did not win. Yeah, but he did win a Golden Globe for Best New Star.
Oh, then he
There's I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen the show The League. Yeah. So they remade pretty much One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Seth Rogen and Jason Mantzoukas. I've never known how to pronounce his last name, but
Jason Mantzoukas, and he's on that How Did This Get Made movie podcast, which is pretty good. Not as good as this show, but pretty good.
What's funny about the Sweet D Has a Heart Attack episode is that they made, of course, Danny DeVito's in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, so they thought, why not do an episode about our shitty healthcare system as like a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest tribute. And so his character is a lot like his character, like Frank's a lot like his character in the film. And they recreated the ending scene because he befriends a guy that's called Chief, a Native American. And so he breaks out of the mental institution and the theme song is played. And I'm like, I was like, wait a minute. Danny DeVito was in One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is the theme song. Then I'm like, I rewatched the episode again. I was like, oh. I'm like, that movie's really like reference a lot in our pop culture.
Yeah, I mean, any movie really that references a mental institution, like definitionally, I think has to reference One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I think it's one of the most kind of humane treatments of a mental institution, right? Like everybody kind of has their humanity intact by the end of it. It's not like people are like off the walls. In fact, throughout the movie, there is a question over and over again, like, what do you guys think you are? Like crazy? Like he's saying, like, these are just my friends. You know, they get to really,
you guys really belong here.
Confused. Yeah.
See, as someone, I've spent time in a mental institution, and the way people portray mental institutions, that like everyone is lumped in together, like you're violent and non-violent patients, when that's not true.
Granted, this was also set in '62, which was very different than the healthcare system today.
Yeah.
So just throw that out there.
Oh yeah, definitely, and it's the way people still treat like mental asylums today is just ridiculous, considering that it's not how it's usually portrayed in our media or even like in the past. Clearly, because times have changed.
Yeah.
But it begs the question, like, why are these guys really here? Like, do they even belong being in like a mental institution? Like, we all know Jack Nicholson's character should be in prison.
I mean,
well, yeah, by modern standards, certainly, and like debatably at the same time, like was like, okay, that's pretty sus, man.
She was 15, going on 35, Doc.
Yeah, little much.
Bummer.
But I mean, there is like the question, and I'm sure Marina knows about this as someone that studied law and stuff. But like, there is the question of like pleading insanity and like whether that is something that can hold up. Like, who is able to really make that judgment? And is jail kind of worse than a psychiatric facility, or is like, because he kind of just tries to get out of his jail sentence by going like, oh, I'll go to like the old feed farm, as they say.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think it would be a better swap. And I've also I've worked in group homes for psychiatric patients. And it while the way that we talk about mental health has definitely changed, my experience just 5 years ago was almost the same as like having these battles of wills between client or like patient and provider, where the women that were in charge of caregiving and doling out medication were like literally playing mind games with the clients. And it's like you're beefing with mentally ill people. You have lost the plot. And I think that is really like what makes Ratched such a great villain, that without laying a hand on anyone, she's just so sinister and so convinced that what she's doing is the right, correct thing to do. And she's actually making all of their lives so much worse.
Marina makes a great
question.
point.
I just am rambling.
No, that's a great point, because again, Nurse Ratched's like thought of as like, oh God, she's so horrible. I mean, if you look at like reviews of this, half of them are just talking about how much they hate Nurse Ratched. Nurse Ratched's the worst, et cetera, et cetera. But like, she's a thotty.
You know what I mean? They're just saying.
Yeah, there's also plenty of thirst boasting as well. Well, hold on, didn't get through the first part.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. It was working better without you, Forrest. No, no. That but the thing is, like, she does it with such kind of quiet villainy, right? And villainy in the fact that she's doing a job and she's doing the best way that she knows how to do it based on the information she has. She's a villain. I think villain of circumstance is what they call that to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at like some of the decisions, yeah, it's a bit harsh, sure, but like by the same token, like, not only can you see it from Ratchet's perspective, but they made that series. I haven't watched it, full disclosure. That's like from her perspective that like she's the best kind of villain. In fact, she's not one-dimensional at all. She's a very three-dimensional character.
Yeah. Though I know like they blame like her villainy or whatever comes from like her experience as a World War II nurse, I believe. But like the show on Netflix kind of gives her like, oh, she has like this tragic backstory or something like that. And I'm like, not everything has to be like some villain has like some like other side to them that makes them this villain or whatever. Like it could be as simple as, oh, it experienced in World War II or whatever. In her case. We kind of almost fetishize the backstory now. I mean, the way that TV works, like you really have to draw that stuff out, and it works well. And I think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to not have that, because you don't really need a backstory. The thing is that there's so much turnover in these mental health facilities, in psychiatric hospitals. People are going in and out, and someone like Nurse Ratchet that really wants to maintain order and control throughout this entire institution obviously isn't going to think of this as like, oh, this is like a battle of wills in the sense of like, this is something that's going to go on for a long time. This is like maybe a temporary person that's being evaluated right now that is coming in and causing trouble. And she's trying to squash that without being overly dictatorial. I mean, you know, the ending of it obviously really, you know, gets you heated and angry to the point where it really is genuine villainy. But like a lot of the things she's doing are kind of trying to squash down what she sees kind of almost as like these temporary temporal mutinies within, I think, the population. Yeah, she's upholding a system that she just knows. And Jack Nicholson's here to ruin that.
And she has her rationale for it, right? Yeah. And even if we're not privy to it, which, by the way, why should we be privy to it? I don't necessarily know if that makes it better. But like she looks at Jack Nicholson's character as a disruptive force, which he is a disruptive force. So there's a very good reason for her to feel that way. And what
are we a pro Nurse Ratchet podcast? We might.
We're pro Ratchet and we vote.
I just think that it's like it's pointless to like argue or not argue, but like to want to make her this dark, seedy villain with this tragic backstory. Like she's a woman doing a job
with power,
and there's nothing that she can do to actually change how any of these people are going to be treated because she's a nurse. Like she's not in charge of like the villain are the people like running these institutions, not her, who's just like, as you're saying, like this is a dramatic portrayal of something that is very mundane. Having your mental health taken care of should just be a very routine run-of-the-mill thing for people, but because we force sick people to exist in these carceral institutions, you are going to have these kinds of stories to tell.
Which actually perfectly cues up something that I do want to introduce into the record here. So I have this clip of
maybe I should have a gavel. It sounds like we're in court.
No. So this is something I want to introduce into this podcast. The doctor that played the doctor in this, right? Like, who is kind of, you know, far more than Nurse Ratchet, I think, is kind of a villain. Like, he's just like, listen, we should just pass this guy off. He doesn't really have issues. I don't see him as dangerous. I don't really want to deal with this. Which is kind of more of a more villainy, I think, in some cases than Nurse Ratchet, who's like, listen, I'm going to kind of intensively deal with this within my unit, not let it kind of be disruptive. But the guy that plays him is the real director of the Oregon State Hospital and allow them to shoot within the hospital. A lot of the people that you see that aren't the main characters, that aren't like well-known actors, are actually mental patients. And he thought of that as kind of part of their treatment, that they could be part of this kind of creative process. And so there's a video where he talks about his decision to let them shoot there.
I warmed to the idea. Thought this would be great to have Hollywood come to OSH. I thought I might have a chance to see that no patient would be denigrated if we'd made the movie. I got ordered by my own boss, the head of the Department of Mental Health. You're not to have anything to do with these. And people don't even talk to the producers. And so I kept my word. My wife talked to him.
Is that the basketball court where they shot Cuckoo's Nest?
Right there. Right there it is.
Look at this.
We shot in 75 for 14 weeks. And the tree that Jack went up, I grabbed hold and got over the wires, was right there. I got a call from Milos one day, deep-throated Jack. He said, "Did we want you to read for us." Well, I sat down and I said, "Jack, my God, I don't know what to do." Jack said, "Well, Diener," he calls me Diener. Diener, he said, "Watch my eyes." He says, "See my eyes? Follow my eyes." He said, "Never let your eyes wander in front of camera." Now, he said, when camera's on you, take all the time in the world and do whatever feels natural. And the other thing is, speak low, speak slow. Then he said, I learned that from the Duke himself. There are lots of people who we find that we're helpless sometimes. I never have felt anybody to be hopeless.
Right.
And everybody deserves to be helped.
Right.
I think it has to be at some point that we begin to treat people, as I say, because they're sick and not because they're dangerous. And this is what I want to work on.
By the way, did you recognize who was interviewing him? It's Ralphie from The Sopranos.
Oh,
Who gave kind of the most Jack Nicholson-esque performance, I think, in that whole show. That he always kind of reminded me of like a strange like Jack Nicholson side character. Between the wig that he's wearing in it and his overacting.
Is it overacting though? I mean,
well,
like
the character is kind of playing a character, right? In The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Yeah. Well, and like I think you can make a real argument, and people have, I think, for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that he's got antisocial personality disorder, right? I mean, he's which in the '60s was like, oh, he just likes his private time, you know, he's just a dude.
Yeah.
It's called being a dude. Hello. It's like, no, it's an actual disorder. Yeah.
And it's incredibly fucking dangerous to a society that like values any kind of order, to have kind of people with that full blown like sociopathic almost antisocial personality disorder where you know you are a disruptive force for the sake of being a disruptive force. But then this kind of asks questions, this movie and the book, I guess probably too, about, you know, who really is crazy, who's seen as dangerous, who where is that line, and should we be treating people because they're dangerous, as the director of you know, in this says, like the director of the Oregon State Hospital, should we be treating people as if they're sick or as if they're dangerous? And you know, I think these are questions that weren't quite raised before that. Like people would just kind of be thrown into these institutions and forgotten about on purpose. They'd be like, look, you can kind of lobotomize them, which is something that's horrified. This is why I've never fucking wanted to watch this movie, because the concept of lobotomy, as someone who has been in and out of psychiatric facilities throughout my life, like that concept has been chilling to me. The idea that like just a few decades ago, they would be like, oh, we'll make sure you're not disruptive anymore. Let's just cut your brain open. That's something that's like felt incredibly haunting to me for my whole life. So, you know, but that is kind of their way to deal with disruption. It's just, well, let's cut out the part of your brain, or assume we might cut out the part of your brain that deals with disruption, that we've decided does. There's no science behind it, but like listen, the frontal lobe, we'll cut out part of your frontal lobe because that's the decision making part. We have to like, mess up the neural links or whatever. And it's like this very base understanding of psychology. I was reading into the history of it for this episode and realizing like how flimsy it really was. Like it worked on one or two people kind of. And then all of a sudden this doctor started going around being like, do I have this magical treatment for you guys? And they would perform them on stage sometimes, 20, 25 at a time.
It ruined the Kennedy.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
JFK's sister.
In my opinion, bro, like she was just maybe manic depressive or something like that. But they can't be like that. Like any minor inconvenience you would get lobotomized for. Oh, you're
we're gonna lobotomize her now.
Yes, like, you got a migraine? Oh, lobotomy.
We must lobotomize our sister.
I just like some peace and quiet around here.
Lobotomy.
Can I just say also, the Kennedy family, not a great brain family. Bad things happen to Kennedy brains.
It's not a great one.
Era Bad Brains. Fantastic band. Not so much of a genetic problem, though.
But
what you can do
it's bad brains. It's dead Kennedys.
That's what your lobotomy.
It's just interesting how like we've come such a long way that we no longer like everyone felt like, oh, you're mentally somewhat or what, like something's wrong with you. Oh, we're gonna do this. Oh, we're gonna do electric shock therapy, which is still like insane. They even when they were filming
they still do shock therapy, by the way.
Electric shock.
They brought it back.
Yeah.
Right.
She never left.
Yeah, that's true.
Like all good fads, it's back again, and it's cooler than ever. Everybody. Shock therapy.
But like the cast witnessed some of those treatments being done.
No, it's ironic. Sorry, go ahead.
Let's lobotomize Conan. He is a disruptor foot now.
Too late.
The movie night extravaganza crew gets lobotomized.
Yo, that was that 5-hour stream we did. That's. I mean, you edited it,
I would want to bring
Kristina,
up.
Sorry, I was doing jokes all over some serious stuff you were saying, so my bad.
Oh well, since you mentioned, actually, when I stayed, because I'll be honest, I made an attempt on my life. You have to be humorous when it comes to that stuff. But like this one woman, she actually received like some severe, like she's tried every medication, every treatment, even like severe, like it border like electroshock, and she's like, nothing works, and I'm like, we just got to deal with it, I guess. I don't know how, what do you do for people who have done everything and nothing works for them?
You let them live as comfortably as humanly possible, but
and
just understanding that they don't have control. Because that was always the problem. Like when I was working, because I was a caregiver for adults with developmental disabilities and delays. So we're talking about people who have not progressed past like maybe an 8th grade understanding of the world, if at all, and literally lack the frontal lobe capacity to make long-term decisions and plannings for themselves. And it's like 20, 30 years ago, we were locking those people up in horrific conditions and squalor and just letting them rot. And now it's like they're under conservatorships, and
we all know how well
they might live a little bit more comfortably.
As long as they're female, they're in a conservatorship.
Yeah, right.
Can't say the same about Kanye West or.
I was gonna say, where's Kanye? Where's Elon? Right? I mean.
Yeah, Elon definitely.
By the way,
Thorazine
was the first antipsychotic that they released that actually made it so that they stopped lobotomizing people because they're like, well, this works as a much better suppressant.
And that was going to lead to my next thing is that for the most part, these people living in these institutions now are just receiving chemical lobotomies because they are so intense. Like I think I may have mentioned this on my stream yesterday, but I was caregiving for a guy that would run off and eat raw chickens in the middle of the night. Like
we talked about this in Three Faces of Eve, right?
Yeah. So like that was one of the people that I caregave for, and so they just had him on a fuck ton of lithium, because otherwise he had a hunger that could only be satiated by eating raw meat in the middle of the night, like a chupacabra. So you know, it's about making people as comfortable as they can be, but even then, like, those medications aren't, you are performing a lobotomy in a way. You can be weaned off of them, but like,
I was
still...
prescribed lithium when I was 15, and I was prescribed an overdose of lithium, and I walked in. I remember walking into the park and just like staring at trees, and the trees were like, it felt like almost like the trees were gonna grab me or something. Like I was having this weird, like I was having lithium toxicity, and I don't know. I don't know if this is like the best movie for me to sound off on, because I've been through like hellish fucking psychiatric experiences. But maybe it does make it the best movie. That's why I avoided it for so long, though, because I've really been through like some shit.
Yeah.
I do want to bring up another movie that's inferior to this, but it's because it's based on a true story, and it actually does kind of help push us into where where things started to reform a bit, because right around the time this movie takes place, there was a gentleman named Chris Calhoun who was basically went on a shooting spree, according to the movie. I've not really read up on his whole story, real life, so I'm just going to go off the movie. And ends up in a mental institution, for the shooting spree, and basically he used the law to reform the institution from the inside. It's a really interesting story and not a very good movie, even though you got Dennis Hopper and Gary Oldman and just doing incredible performances.
Well, another thing.
So those days they put you in a mental institution. Today they just give you a show on Fox News. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So no, but like it does. I mean, this is the time period too that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest comes out, where they begin to reform these institutions, because the whole thing is that they had put people into psychiatric care and just kind of forgotten about them. And I think that Ken Casey,
Ken Casey, this is his first book, by the way.
Yeah.
This is before Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. This is before most of the stuff with the Merry Pranksters. I mean, like this is like a early book for him.
And he was kind of first went to one of these institutions as part of MK Ultra. I don't think he knew it was part of MK Ultra, but the CIA program where they tested acid on people to see if they could mind control them for a certain amount of money. So he first started out in one of those programs, and then decided to work at the hospital as an orderly, and also I think stole a bunch of, if I'm not mistaken, stole some of the acid they were using for those acid tests.
And that's kids. I think it ended up in college kids' dorms and stuff like that. So
yeah, well, so at that point though, the only place you could get acid from was MK Ultra, like that program, right? And they didn't call it that, and nobody really knew it was that. But then a lot of people later found out that like that is where they were getting the acid from. It was literally from the CIA. But the thing is that they started sneaking it out of there, and they had chemists, like basement chemists, like the good kind of chemists, kind of synthesizing what they kind of found from CIA lab acid, and that's how acid kind of got out to the general population, which is kind of a crazy story that I never actually heard all of until I read Stephen Kinzer's book on it, and he has One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like the author, as one of the sources that he uses for that book. But yeah.
All right. But yeah, and so Tom Wolfe's Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test is literally, they were trying to create art out of everyday life, right? So the Merry Pranksters, they would literally run around and throw these parties called acid tests around Bay Area and beyond, and like that's how Neil Cassidy got turned on to it, who then beget Kerouac and Ginsberg, Timothy Leary, like so on and so on. So like, I mean, there's, as far as psychedelics go, like if he hadn't written One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like you basically be like the godfather of modern psychedelia to a certain degree. But like he did, so we think of him as the incredible author that wrote this fantastic book that turned into a play, turned into a movie. But yeah, incredibly important to a culture that honestly I find I'm openly disdainful of, because I think hippies failed completely, and I think the whole psychedelic thing basically
that's the only
big back in a big big way.
The only thing you can feel for the new left, like that whole movement, is disdain.
Yeah.
Like that is the only real feeling that
because it was an abject failure, and just basically led to a hedonistic lifestyle that led people seeking introversion to a certain degree, and selfishness that made sure that we had the yuppies, right? It's no surprise that so many of the hippies turned into yuppies, right? So that's a separate discussion. But I think it's also worth mentioning that the blatant hypocrisy of the boomers thinking that they're redefining love and really all they're doing is just having a good time on drugs. Hey, no sweat. That's fine. Just don't think you're doing anything that important because you're not actually changing culture that much other than making a bunch of dumb jokes in movies nobody cares about.
So I have a thing of Ken. Is it Ken Casey or is it Ken?
I always thought it was Ken Kesey. I'll do that bit where I do the pronunciation because I saw him. I saw him and the Merry Pranksters open for Jane's Addiction. Actually,
by the way, I like this comment. I was thinking Cornell West asking, "What does it mean to be well-adjusted in an unjust society?"
Good question. There we go. Hold on. Ken Kesey. That's what it says.
All right. Yeah. So this is a clip of him talking about the process of writing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Ken Kesey.
The real spark for that book came when I'd been over at the Pendleton Roundup with my dad. And on the way back on the bus, going down the Columbia Gorge toward Portland, there was a big scene up in front of us. And they stopped the bus, and there were cop cars and ambulances. And the bus driver got out and asked this, I think it was a construction worker that was walking along and talking to people, because they were in the process of building the dam, the first big dam on the Columbia, which wiped out Soilo Falls, and which was where I had been watching ever since I was a kid, watching the Indians get out there on the rocks and scoop and stick those big salmon. And the guy says, "Oh, some drunk Indian got out in the road with a knife in his teeth and ran right straight into the grill of one of our trucks." And it's so perfect seeing this big line of people over here, this construction job going on, building the dam, and the story that this Indian took on modern American machine head on with a knife in his mouth. And from that, I gradually expanded it into the Cuckoo's Nest idea. I had to report for the draft up here, and I'd also put in an application for scholarship to Stanford. And I had dislocated my shoulder in wrestling not long before that. So I let my arm hang. There was a big gap there in the x-rays. And the guy had taken the x-rays, looked at stuff, and he says, "You don't really want to go in the service, do you?" I said, "No." My life just took a turn and headed down to the Bay Area. And we were living with a bunch of other grad students in a little area there. And Vic Lovell was part of the drug experiment, and it was going on at the Menlo Park Hospital, and he got me to sit in for him, and finally I became one of the regular guinea pigs. And they took me in to give me these drugs. It was on the ward, and put me in a nice little room that was locked, a little tiny window here with chicken wire glass on it, and gave me this stuff. And we did it for like 8 weeks. I got $20 every Tuesday. And I started looking out at those guys through this little chicken wire window, and I saw that the doctors were unaware of something that the nuts knew quite well. And that part of it was the fact that all this Freudian stuff is baloney. That these guys were in there not because of something that happened to them in their bathroom when they were 6. They were there because something had happened to them in their adult life. The stuff that really made me see the hard side of it in the Cuckoo's Nest fashion was a stuff called, it was IT-290, and there was Ditran, but mescaline itself. Mescaline, when you take mescaline, you begin to see Indian blankets in your mind. You realize this is something to do with not only America today, but with America 1,000 years ago. After I was finished with the experiments, I came back and got a job as an aide, was put on that very same ward, and worked nights there for 9 months. And in the course of the working, I was able to write that book, almost all on the ward. Nurses would come by and say, "Oh, Mr. Kesey, you're typing up your reports again. I'm so proud of you." And I didn't tell him that what I was doing was not only writing about these guys in twisted consciousnesses, but I had joined the ranks of the twisted conscious. But by then, was doing stuff that I had not to be doing. But I knew that I was seeing something really peculiarly American and tragic and glorious at the same time. And so that book really just kind of wrote itself.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cheesy.
So true, King. So true. Because that was just my thought. Like while I was watching, I was like, this just feels like the job that I had. It feels exactly like the job that I had. I literally had a woman who was placed in there, and it's like, you don't like, she was placed into a group home with people with like very like severe disabilities, and she shouldn't have been there. She was placed there as punishment. And it was tragic. It was just it was just like an increasing, like, give her more drugs to get her to act more controllable, and all she wanted to do was like have some semblance of freedom and be like, I want to move to LA and live in LA. Like, I'll have a caregiver in LA, but like, why can't I live on my own anymore? Because it was punishment.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, it hits entirely different also when it's women, because it's taken a long time for us really to view women as people, as a society. You know what I mean? Like people that have agency over their own lives,
Right.
that aren't just subject to whatever their husbands or their fathers or whatever other caregiver really thinks and you see it even now with like Britney Spears and the whole conservatorship thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like even if you have that level of success, you can just have someone go like, oh well, I don't think they're mentally fit, and like put them away. Which is why I think that hit so hard for so many different people, or for so many people, because they're like, oh shit, like this is something that could still very much happen within our society, even to someone who's like like a generational icon in a way. Like
has
Right.
power and agency in her own way, but still is.
And I honestly thought she was out of the conservatorship when like she was doing like the recording a new album and going on all these tours and whatnot, or when she was hosting America's Got Talent or whatever, or the X Factor, one of those shows. But they're like, oh no, she's still under all that, and I'm like,
no, that's a family that needs money. That
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, well,
go out
exactly.
there and
I was just gonna
perform.
say she's working, so she's working,
Yeah.
so therefore she's earning. She's
Yeah.
earning money for them. But I think it ties back to what we were talking about in the last episode on Three Faces of Eve too, right? About how like when they're talking about Eve's status as a human, it's really just in relation to what value she's providing for her dick bag of adult husband, really.
Right.
And like, what, and like. Okay, so that's like quintessentially 1950s, right? This is a little bit later. This is the 60s, but this is as those norms are barely starting to be adjusted. And don't get me started on the internalized misogyny of hippies and boomers, because, I mean, let's be clear. Like, despite rhetoric to the otherwise, there was a lot of women are shadow like sort of mindsets that, especially when you get into the culty kind of stuff, et cetera, et cetera. We really have not advanced that far at that point.
No, we have not.
That's where
Absolutely not.
Thank you. As a dude, that is my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah. Me still are like birthing cows.
And,
yeah, exactly. Right.
And still, we have this whole thing where men like consider themselves allies or something to the cause of feminism and kind of get away with whatever fucking behaviors they want.
Yeah, I mean, the men's right
within
movement came out of the women's right movement. It's really weird because this guy was like involved with like one of the founders was involved with frickin' what's her name and the 60s and Canada. I don't know. It's weird. That's all I'm gonna say.
But yeah.
I mean, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
No. You go.
No. You go.
You go, good sir. I forgot what I was
but I think, okay, so if you think about it in terms of Kesey's book, like that's why Louise Fletcher's portrayal of Nurse Ratched is so interesting and so compelling. Because think about of the time, right? Like, and there is like like I said, there's a certain amount of, I think I saw in the chat, complicity, right? Complicity, but she's not the originator of these. Well, she's just trying to maintain order. She's trying to look after the people that are under her charge. Is how she looks at it. Now, is she overbearing? Yes. Is she unfair? Absolutely. But like, she's not a villainous thing, and that's what makes her a fantastic antagonist.
Right.
Because you really have two people that are both trying to do good at loggerheads with each other in the ways that they know. Now, Jack Nicholson's the fun one. Like, his character is he's the X factor. He brings in the sex workers, right? Like he's like very interested in getting everyone to like watch like the game, so on and so on.
Hey, I actually have a question about that. Is the sex worker he brings in, is that the 15-year-old that he is arrested for originally, or is that just the sex worker he knows? Because I had questions about that. As soon as that's the person he first picked up, right? Like, you would assume that that's the person that he was having some kind of sexual relationship with.
A teenage prostitute.
Well, I mean, I don't know what, like, it doesn't seem like he's paying her to be, like, it seems like they do have some kind of relationship, although, like, you know what I mean? Like, whether he kind of passes her out to, and her friend out to whoever within this ward, it does seem like they have some kind of relationship where he, like, it's not like he hands her money or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like they have a relationship of some kind, because that's the first person he picks up. And I just wondered, I wondered if that was the person he got arrested for being with in the first place. And I also wondered, like, what was his role in that? Because in some ways it seems like he kind of promises her to Turkleton or whatever his Scatman Crothers character is, but and her friend. But it also seems like they do have it's telling that that's the first place he goes. I think you would assume that that's kind of a person that he had some kind of relationship with, although like a non-possessive one, it seems like.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never read the book.
I don't know. I've read the book, and it's been years. I don't remember that being the case, but also maybe I just wasn't an avid enough of a reader to pick up on that. Kind of seems like the guy that, a guy that would like know, quote unquote, good time girls, right? As I think they were referred to.
But he really tries to get the other guys to just loosen up and have fun, and they're like, nurse.
Yeah, exactly. Loosen up and have fun.
Nurse.
Okay, womanize with me. It's a good time, damn it.
There's weird. So this movie, I like it a lot. I liked it a lot. It was like, I think it really is one of the best movies of all time. Of course, the last like 20 minutes of it get very dark.
But that's one of the things that makes it so good, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, because kind of
because for all his faults, sorry to keep railroading you, but for all his faults and as messed up as he is, and how he actually have a mental disorder, despite him being there allegedly accidentally, what happens to him is horrible.
Yeah, no, it's
absolutely horrible, and it's heartbreaking, and it's like, oh wow!
I'm so glad you're the Forrest of this episode. No, so. But there is kind of when he and I love that Scatman Crothers is the actor that plays that character. But like, it does seem that when he has him like he kind of promises him the girls, and they start kind of having a party, and there's almost like an Animal House vibe to it. Like, he's kind of almost turning his psychiatric unit into a frat house or something. You know what I mean? Like, they're all partying, they have these bottles. Like, the girls brought bottles, they're like all like chilling, like it's like this fun kind of thing. And obviously the bill has to come due, like at the end of it. Like, you can't do that. Like, you can't, number one, kidnap the entire psychiatric unit kind of and take them fishing and escape and like do all these kind of antics and get away with it, because this is in the end somewhere that has full control over you, and that is somewhere that's supposed to be treating your psychiatric health, or at least kind of pretending to offer that kind of treatment, right? Like, it's a brutal institution. But throughout the first 2/3 of this movie, I kind of found it fascinating that like they kind of take a lighthearted approach. Like, like the back and forth between Nurse Ratched and and Jack Nicholson's character. It seems like that whole back and forth is almost seems almost like kind of lighthearted in some ways. Like
Yeah.
there isn't really
like Sam and Diane, right? Like
Yeah.
to use it for a TV series, it was like much later. But like McMurphy and Ratchet, it's like, oh well, okay, what's happening? Do they have a respect
They
for
sure
each
like
other? Are they going to be friends? You know, like no, that is not no.
And I think she does have a respect
No
for him.
and no.
Your
She
hand
does,
is
well, she
clean,
does
my
have a respect for
glass.
him, which is why she needs to lobotomize him in the end. Like she has a respect for the way that he's able to actually coalesce these like his whole unit into like this disruptive force. But like that is the reason that she needs to have somebody actually cut his head open and try to rearrange his neural pathways or whatever.
Patients got to unionize, you know.
Uprising, yeah.
Fun.
but again, look at it from her perspective, right? Like an uprising in the hospital is like not necessarily the best thing for order. So she's looking at like, oh, he's being a disruption, and what makes him kind of dangerous out in the world, like being like an antisocial personality disorder, also makes him a leader, especially amongst these guys that like live kind of sheltered lives, and they're like, oh, this guy's cool and fun. All right, cool. Yeah, let's do cool, fun things with our cool and fun friend.
So he might be a sociopath in a way.
I want to hear Marina riff on this a little bit because
I would love that too.
Very, very charming.
I've got nothing. I've just been listening and I've got nothing.
Do you think his antics are like cool and fun, or are you like, oh, this guy? Like, I mean, that's.
I think that he just showcases that instead of pathologizing mental health and treating people like they're people, that you probably have better outcomes for treatment instead of what Nurse Ratchet is doing, which is kind of just tormenting them in these group therapy sessions, which clearly aren't helping. They always turn into these, like, nobody's smiling and laughing and giggling. They're yelling, they're screaming, they're like getting physical with each other. And as Forrest said, the reason that she has to stop Jack Nicholson's character is because he's outdone her. He's done her job better than she could do it, because she doesn't view them as people. She views them as her wards for her to smother.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I don't think Jack Nicholson views them as people when he first gets there, right? Like he's just kind of trying to fuck around. But you do see that that's where the humanity of the story kind of kicks in, where it's like, oh no, fuck, these are like my friends now. Like these are people that I actually relate to on a bunch of different levels. Like psychiatric disorders don't dehumanize you in any way, shape, or form. Like all of a sudden, people have issues that they need to overcome, and it seems like people aren't really working towards those issues within the psychiatric institution for the reason that they're not working. Like they're not like Nurse Ratchet, torturing her friend, which is like a weird conflict of interest, her friend's kid, by being like, oh, I'm going to tell your mother over and over again, which is clearly what he fears. Like that's not working towards ending his psychiatric issues. But it does seem like there is a pathway forward for that character. Like he's terrified of a parent that is probably a lot like Nurse Ratchet, like is domineering.
That's the reason why they're buds. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it seems like, even characters like Danny DeVito's character in this, that is like kind of, a little bit out of it, probably overly medicated anyway, but like is kind of just like, I don't know, HR McMaster or what's
HR McMaster. McMurphy is the character.
McMaster,
yeah, surprising later career.
HR puppet stuff.
So McMurray's character.
HR Giger over there, right? Yeah.
HR puffin stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, I watched three Cronenberg movies yesterday and still managed to watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest a third time. So my brain is just a sponge right now. But
when HR Giger showed up at the
you would assume though that these issues for a lot of these characters, even Danny DeVito's character, seems to probably be someone that I would recognize almost as like over medicated, like someone who kind of has kind of had the all emotion and response to people kind of sapped out of them by simply medication, or I mean, also it could be like something like autism or something, but like I don't know. Like it does seem like even then, Jack Nicholson has him on the boat and is like, look, you're not loony now, like you're just kind of having fun, like fishing. You're a fisherman now. Like that is an approach to treatment that actually probably would work. Like somebody actually, and I'm queuing something up with this, but the director Milos, I think Furman is his last name, but
Milos Forman.
So he I have a clip of him talking about the results of the doctor that we talked about, who was the actual person at the Oregon State Psychiatric Hospital. There actually was some results from kind of having them involved in this process of filmmaking. I mean, I don't know. This is obviously from a biased source in this case, but
Milos Forman also did Amadeus. He also did Man on the Moon. He did People versus Larry Flint. Like, he's made a lot of movies. They're not all just like this. I don't know how you make another movie like this, but yeah.
And I do want to get into the process. I do want to talk after this about the process of how he came to direct a movie like this and how it actually ended up getting made, because I think it's a fascinating story. But yeah.
All the actors are actors. All the patients are actors, professional actors, except for the people you see in the background or in other cells, you know, in that hospital. They are all patients, mental patients. Because when we to shoot the film, we had to shoot the film on location because we didn't have money to build, you know, elaborate studio sets and like that. So we asked several hospitals to let us shoot mental institutions. None would allow us to go there because the book was very unpopular, because, you know, not showing psychiatry in the best light, right? That. Just this one, Dr. Dean Brooks from the state hospital in Salem, Oregon, said, "Oh yeah, please, I have one condition, that you will employ some of my patients." Fine, okay, sure. And it was, well, first of all, why? Well, for therapeutical reasons. I don't understand psychiatry. And I didn't want to study anything about psychiatry because I didn't want, before the film, because I didn't want to fill the film with information which only me and a psychiatrist will understand, you know? So I didn't know anything. Okay, so all these people there, you know, in the other cells, in the other rooms and in the corridors are real patients. And it worked. I remember we had one guy there who, when we started shooting, couldn't put 3 words together so that they make sense. When we finished shooting, he was giving orders to everybody, you know. So it worked. You know. So that was also, it was wonderful because all these Hollywood actors, and you know, some of them became big stars later. You know, Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd, Schiavelli, and, you know. So suddenly in the company, because we were shooting there on the grounds and these people were around, it made them humble. It made Hollywood humble. Everybody was sort of, yeah, how lucky I am, and worked really hard.
I love that.
And
Make more movies.
He's kind of a complicated character, Milos, for our kind of politics, because he was an avowed anti-communist and felt like Nurse Ratchet's character was a reaction in this movie to his feelings of feeling stifled under communism. And, you know, I mean, that's something that it doesn't really...
Well, we also lost his parents in a concentration camp, too. So he's like one of those types of guys that kind of like went almost the other way too far, right? But,
yeah.
But, complicated. But a big free speech advocate. See People versus Larry Flint. That's the reason why he was so excited to do that movie, was not because he was a big fan of pornography. He was a big fan of, you know, Larry Flint's free speech advocacy.
So
maybe he's a big fan of pornography too. I don't know.
So what you're saying is, Milos, go on, give them an argument. Go talk to Ben Burgess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I didn't mean to. Did I sidetrack that conversation? Sorry, I didn't mean
Larry
to.
Flint?
Like,
I don't know.
I mean, I don't think he's made a movie recently. I was just wondering if he's still around.
I don't know.
I mean,
yeah,
I
don't know.
he's still alive.
Did you guys look at like the casting choices for this film? Like people who are probably up for like Jack Nicholson's part and even like Louise Fletcher?
So I actually have this is kind of where I wanted to go from this conversation, because the original casting choice of this film, and the reason that it even was able to get made in the first place, is that the play, Kirk Douglas, famous feminist Kirk Douglas.
Milos Forman died in 2018, by the way. I just looked it up.
Oh,
okay.
Well, there's always
at the age of 86. So right.
So Kirk Douglas took a shine to his role, playing this on Broadway, and actually bought the rights to it. And by the time the movie was able to get made, they tried to make it a bunch of times. Michael Douglas kind of took over, and Kirk Douglas was just too old to play this character. It wouldn't have been convincing in any way, shape, or form.
Michael Douglas in that role?
Well, so he played the role on Broadway though for throughout the '60s, the early '60s.
Right, which would make he would be the right age then, right? So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I have a clip of Michael Douglas talking about the process of casting Jack Nicholson, and he mentions a couple people that were up for the role. I think there's way more people, if anyone wants to look it up, that were up for the role than they actually talk about in this. But I did think it was an interesting clip, and Michael Douglas ends up kind of producing this. And when they talk about this movie, they always have Michael Douglas as the person kind of that they talk to about this. And obviously, thank God he plays no role in it, because I know I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the work that he's done as an actor, but I am happy that he kind of played that role, which, it's kind of fascinating that his father, he had to kind of beg his father to be like, listen, let me take over. This is a family project. This is something we're passionate about. You're too old to do this, but can I please be the person in charge of producing and casting this?
Casting conversation started coming up regarding Mick Murphy. And as I remember, I think we went first to Gene Hackman, who passed. Went to Marlon Brando, who passed. And going back now I think it was about a year before, Hal Ashby at one time had mentioned Jack Nicholson. Now you have to remember, Jack had done 5 Easy Pieces, Easy Rider, but his persona was sort of the sensitive young man, or the intellectual that was a badass, It wasn't R.P. McMurphy. But Hal had just started to do a picture called The Last Detail. And he said, you got to take a look at this. That was the first picture where you really felt the side. Milos was very consumed with Burt Reynolds. Milos loved Burt Reynolds. And I remember him going off, he was doing Smokey and the Mess. And I said, I kind of know what you mean. But what is it? He said, yeah. He has cheap charisma. Cheap charisma. It is perfect for McMurphy.
No, Jack was really always my first choice. But, when we were ready, we found out that he has commitment to make another movie. So if we want Jack, we have to wait 6 months or 7 months, Then I started to think about other, actors eventually. And I must tell it, to the credit of Saul and Michael, when I came back to them and said, listen, I would rather wait. They said, okay, we'll wait.
But Jack did that all the time.
Big Bugs Bunny energy there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to love the psychiatric hospital guy though. It's he just seems like he's so passionate about this. This is the one movie he was in. He just seems like this is his passion project. And so I don't know. I mean, Burt Reynolds as
well, that's
all I'm seeing is just that Saturday Night Jeopardy sketch where he's like, "What's a Popeye?" Like that's just all I'm picturing is Burt Reynolds as McMurphy. What's a Popeye?
I think Brando could have done it. I think Brando.
Yeah, James Caan was also on the list, and he could have done it too. But
James Caan and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Interesting. Okay. Well, it definitely you'd be like, yeah, statutory rape. All right. I get it. James Caan. Yep. Not surprised. Seems like that kind of bro. Just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Michael Douglas is interesting. See, here's the thing. I guess I have a higher opinion of Michael Douglas than you do, Forrest, because I think like The Game is fantastic. You know, China Syndrome. I think there's a lot of good Michael Douglas.
Black Rain.
I'm not saying that he's like the worst actor of all time. It just, I don't know. It's just like a project of this caliber at this time period. It feels like
it would be a different kind of H.R. McMaster. Is that what you said?
But it was Kirk Douglas for one of the roles, and
I think people only think of Falling Down, which is unfortunately like a great movie for its time that has been reappropriated with no nuance whatsoever to be like a dude's rock like MAGA kind of thing, and it's not what that is at all. But I think Michael Douglas is a good actor. He's a very different.
Yeah. I don't think he's. Yeah.
But
I want De Niro doing that role.
That would be interesting. 70s De Niro. That'd be interesting. But who is the alternate casting choices for Louise Fletcher though? That's my question.
Well, Conan, you're not going to look it up and do the bit.
I can. I mean, I'm curious. But I think that Marina made a good point a while back too about like how I was sort of like almost making excuses for Nurse Ratched. She's not really interested in helping any of these people grow. She almost doesn't think that's a possibility. She's trying to protect society from them. Is how she's looking at it. And I think that's really smart to notice, because I think in this era of like I like to call it like, you know, ruinous empathy, where we like just want to identify and find like a story and the backstory behind someone, why they're this way and whatever. Like, no, like her mindset is these people are dangerous to the folks outside. I'm here to keep them here. I'm not here to make them well. I'm here to protect the general populace from them. And that makes the motivations for actions that happen later in the movie more apparent when you think about that from her mindset. So I think that's an important clarification. I thought that was a good point. Also, it was 100,000 years ago. So
okay. So Anne Bancroft.
Whoa.
Angela Lansbury.
Whoa.
Geraldine Page, Colleen Dewhurst, and Ellen Bernstein all turned down the role.
Ellen Burstyn?
Yeah. Like, she would have been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for her, like spots.
She was Mrs. Levitt on Broadway.
Yeah.
I listened to that soundtrack actually pretty fucking frequently, and I actually really enjoy it.
Sweetheart's great.
Shelley Duvall was considered for the role of Candy.
Really?
Which would have had 3 people from The Shining in this movie.
I was gonna say, like, it's The Shining Redux at that point.
Yes.
And Bancroft would have been fascinating. Wow, what would she do? Blazing Saddles?
But I'm curious what Marina has to say about your point about ruinous empathy, and I think it's actually fascinating that we have you on the show, Marina, for this specific thing, because of your experience working within this field. So I think about that ruinous empathy point a lot too, and I'm wondering your thoughts on some of that.
I guess I had never heard of the term before today. So
I just heard of it phrased like that, but I see the concept.
Right, because it's this like need to humanize her, and she's just like, she doesn't have to be a fully formed human. She can just represent the system that sees itself like she's just the stagnation is what she is.
Like the status quo.
Yeah.
And I think in a post Cold War society, it's kind of interesting to make these distinctions, because, you know, someone like Miloš, I guess I'll add the H to it, like Michael Douglas did, you know, seeing this as kind of a story about totalitarianism, about his experience under the Soviet Union, about his experience under fascism, like, you can kind of see a lot of things. A lot of these stories, I think, at this time period in the 20th century get compared to things like that because of the struggle. And it's like implicitly understood that this is an ideological struggle, and these characters kind of represent ideological motivations. We don't have that anymore. We're under the TINA system. You know, there is no alternative, as, you know, Mark Fisher brilliantly kind of put it. And now we kind of need this sense of trauma, or this sense of this backstory kind of for these characters, because we don't have that ideological struggle between kind of fascism or any kind of authoritarianism in that way, because kind of every society is authoritarian. It's kind of adopted those means, right? Like, but we don't call it that. So now we kind of need people to have these traumatic, villainous backstories, or else we don't really understand that, because we don't feel that same kind of pull towards kind of systems as the thing oppressing people. Because if we did understand that every system would be overthrown, we'd be like, oh shit, like all of these are authoritarian systems. Like we need to actually oppose them. So now we kind of need that to be humanized through either some kind of empathy or towards some kind of trauma. You know, and the next time we have a movie that kind of deals with that, I think I'd like to have Catherine Liu come on too, because she's kind of been doing a lot of work on kind of the trauma-based function of characterization within TV and film. Mm-hmm. And it kind of feels like we need to see it through that kind of empathetic frame, and not quite towards you know, what things like what a lot of stories, even like Animal Farm or something, like the Orwell stories, like that kind of characters are kind of stand-ins for different systems. And it's like we don't have that because we only really have one global system.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it's interesting, but like the best way to describe Nurse Ratched is the fact that she's basically like as I'm reading up on her, a popular metaphor for the corrupting influence of institutional power and authority in bureaucracies.
She's
like, does she need a backstory? Like,
no. Like it like that's why I'm just not interested in that show because of that. Maybe it's great. I don't know, but like there's no need for it. Like one of the things I like about Cobra Kai is Cobra Kai takes what is ultimately not that deep of a movie, but a movie that's well regarded by people of a certain age, and it gives the characters extra dimension and depth. Yeah. And it's not just strict heroes and villains, it's shades of gray. And that works perfectly for that, because that was a cheap 80s morality play that happens to have like some great lines and some great scenes. It's okay. Karate Kid's pretty good. Whatever.
You know, we can make the libertarian one flew over a cuckoo's nest and be like, listen, Nurse Ratched is the DMV.
The thing is, the reason why it works with Karate Kid is because it's so surface level. Which is like, there's a certain type of movie that came out, especially in the 80s, that's like that. And one of the reasons why Cobra Kai is so great is because it takes something to the surface level, adds a different style of depth to it, and tells a modern story with these same characters that goes somewhere different. Yeah. Maybe that's what the Ratched show does. I don't know. All I know is I think that character's awesome, and I don't want to know anything more about her.
Yeah,
I'm good.
But I wanted to throw Marina more into this conversation, because we've all kind of railroaded this into a bunch of different directions, and I want to be an engaging.
What is shocking about me?
Topic of the film, so
yeah. Anyway, Marina, what do you feel about all that? Go ahead.
What part?
The last 40 minutes of the show, apparently. Yeah.
But I kind of follow the thread. And then it went in other directions. I was kind of following.
All over the place.
Yeah.
And I've been smoking too much of that loud, so I'm just like, yeah. Yeah.
I like that your camera went hazy right as you said that.
It knows.
That's some great work. That's some great cinematography. So that is.
Yeah, which part specifically do you want me to answer on? We've kind
I kind of followed the thread of the kind of these authoritarian ideological systems and the way that kind of plays a role within this. And
right, once we talk about the boring part, definitely want to talk about.
No, but I kind of find that fascinating, as like, I mean, also it's been mentioned in the chat, like a bureaucracy and like that kind of struggle, like a bureaucratic struggle, like these different forms of that, rather than kind of you know, the more performative, empathetic side of it, which is like, let's give Nurse Ratched a backstory and make her this character that like, oh, these traumatic things happen to. That idea of kind of trauma, that idea of kind of emotionality almost, you know, like that every character kind of has to have that, rather than kind of seeing these characters as novels did within the 20th century. Some of the best novels, like all of the best novels too, like with kind of as stand-ins for these different ideological and bureaucratical functions.
Right, like this is an allegory. This isn't, she's not a real person, and I don't need to know her depressing backstory and why that makes it okay for her to be giving out lobotomies to people. Like that's not, which even then that's not her final call to be making, because she's
More
power,
female
like
lobotomies.
yeah, more female
lobotomists.
lobotomies.
Then you
Like,
end up with
she's-
that Zack Snyder movie Sucker Punch.
Right, like she's still not the one that's in control, which is why, like, why do you, like, it's really just like the girl bossification of
Yeah.
like we need to rehash all of this IP just so that, because we have nothing, and it's like, what are you, like, what can you say in this time period about mental health care by using an allegory from the 1960s? Like, what are,
Yeah, especially for someone who is trying to uphold a certain system. Like it's in my opinion, for her, it's about the fact that she has some type of power
right?
Yeah.
over these patients. That's all. Like she likes having that power.
She has some kind of power, and also this is an institution that she doesn't really have control over, besides to enforce whatever rules they kind of come up with.
And she's fine with that.
Kind of the idea of like nominal democracy, and I find it a fascinating scene when her way to get Jack Nicholson to kind of calm down within the story is like, oh well, listen, if you get a certain amount of votes, and not telling him that it's the entire ward, just acting like it's the single group. Like if you get a certain amount of votes, you can watch the game, which is something that totally disrupts the schedule and the system. And you realize like she's never going to allow that. No matter what happens, she's never going to allow that. There's always going to be a reason why, oh, that vote didn't count. But it's kind of brilliant that she goes, listen, you just need to get a majority of votes, and you can change the schedule. That's how we change ward policy. So he gets 9 votes. He gets like the full group, and she's like, oh no, sorry, I meant like the whole ward. And that's the moment you realize that like this nominal notion of democracy kind of opening it up to everybody while still being like, I'm going to get control by not specifying who actually falls into this this category is kind of fascinating. And it kind of is this it's kind of her pretending to level with him on some point, right? Like her opening this up to some kind of fake democratic vote. And then once he goes, oh well, I kind of fulfilled that. It's like, oh no, wait, there's another hurdle. But like,
yeah, it's like the 2016 election. Like Bernie Sanders is McMurphy, Ratchet is Hillary Clinton, and
you mean I only have to have a certain amount of votes to watch the game? This is gonna be easy.
Well, also too, like with Louise Fletcher, like she just has like that face, like she's like a stone cold bitch, like type of like this role was perfect for her, which makes sense for her playing the grandmother in Flowers in the Attic. I'm like, she's always gonna be playing some type of authoritarian figure that is out to destroy people.
Also, she kind of looks like a Dr. Seuss character.
She got a little Who from Hugo.
But I think that because we're gonna do a bonus thing right with Renee after this, getting her thoughts on it. So I think it's probably time to move to the Letterboxd one-liners and kind of go through that. This is a weird fucking movie to have Letterboxd one-liners for, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do all of them have the hots for? Any
gotta throw in a little bit.
So all right. So point one to that. I have full Letterboxd one-liners for weirder, more inappropriate movies for sure.
There we go.
I've done it. I've done it with a smile, and I managed to pull out some.
Well, Three Faces of Evil is another one that was weird to do, right? Like,
of course it is. Yeah, it's a lot, But that said, like it's I think it's still a good bit. Anyway, I don't want to meta analyze the bit. Let's actually do the bit. So thank you very much, Forrest. Now it's time for the Letterboxd one-liners. Letterboxd, of course, a place for film, a place open source democracy, bottom up. Everybody gets to have their say, not just the Siskel's and Eberts of the world, but a bunch of film nerds talking at, with, and to each other about the movies they love, the movies they don't love, the movies they're fascinated by, the movies they're mystified by. And of course, the best representation of this for this particular bit on this show is the one-liner format, where you work out your type 5 on the internet with everyone else talking about a movie you saw. And that's what this bit is. These are the Letterboxd one-liners for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Acting so real, I thought I was in the cuckoo's nest.
5 stars.
It makes a lot more sense once you find out that like a lot of the characters in the background and the people in the background really were working for a psychiatric hospital.
Right.
Agreed. Guys being dudes.
This is a very like guys rock, dudes rock movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like Animal House, but in a psychiatric hospital for the first 2/3 of it. Like, it's like
that literally, you saying that literally like played in my head just right before you said that. I was like, oh, he's gonna say this.
And you were right. By the way, Animal House came out 3 years later. It's like, what if we did that, but not in a mental hospital?
There we go.
There you go. But there were so many derivations of this particular one. This is my favorite.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a guys being dudes movie. It is. It's a dudes rock movie. Boys
interrupted.
I was thinking this the whole time. I'm like, wait a minute. I've watched Girl Interrupted, and I'm like, it's like that, but for dudes.
By a bitch ass nurse.
Oh man!
And Angela
character would totally be an MRI now. You know.
Yeah. Sorry, that was just ironic misogyny. The same way I used towards J.K. Rowling.
Big fan of the guy that was just dancing in the background in some of the scenes.
Yeah.
Do you think I didn't? So all right. So I was making these the graphic version of this last night, and for the first 2 times I watched this, I didn't really notice how much that guy was dancing in the background. Yes. And they play it up in the very beginning. Like they literally have that moment where he's dancing in the background, and the guy's like, "No, sit down," and like put. So you think that was do you think that was one of the mental patients, or do you think that was? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe he's the father of the kid who's moonwalking for no reason in Twin Peaks.
Oh, I thought he was going to be the father of the guy. There's that weird video that they always play where it's like a bunch of Russian people doing like the dance with glow sticks. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but that's what it reminded me of.
No, I've never seen this.
I did not think it would end like that.
Jesus.
Longar 7 saying what I think everyone thinks when they see it for the first time, contextless.
Well, the first two, that's what I was saying. Like the first 2/3 of it have a very different feeling. And then you go through the final, like the ending of it, and you're like, oh, fuck.
Okay, so Christopher Lloyd was young once. That's nice.
It was only for 5 minutes, but we caught it on film.
We got it. We got the golden hour.
Happened once Reagan got into office. I mean, Bernie's been openly elderly since the Carter administration, at least.
Yeah, well, didn't he become an old man during Taxi?
Yeah, exactly. A little bit. I mean, it's like
Christopher Lloyd's character is kind of fascinating to me, and this is what happens to you when you watch this movie 3 times. So I realized that he's one of the only people actually committed. Like he's one of the 3. You know, they list off like, oh, these are the people that are actually here non-voluntarily, like within the psychiatric hospital. He's one of those, but he also is one of the most quote unquote like normal in some ways. Doesn't seem like he's over medicated. You know what I mean? Like he definitely has anger issues, but like it's not put into that. He kind of is one of the more coherent characters. So that kind of fascinated me about him in this movie.
Yeah.
Chief got to be the realest motherfuckers in the existence of cinema.
Yo, get you a friend like Chief though. Like
R.I.P. to the
great character. I think I mentioned like the very beginning of the episode before we redid the opening. That character is fantastic, and also from the book, it's from his perspective.
And also too the Will Sampson. Yeah, too bad he got zucked by the poltergeist cursed, but what a guy.
This is actually just a Dr. Emmett Brown origin story.
True.
Amazing.
He broke in 1955, ended up in a mental institution in 1962.
Connect the dots, people.
Kids ain't ready.
I really like the part where Danny DeVito started eating dice.
Oh God, I'm trying to remember if he did that in the It's Always Sunny episode about this.
Probably. I also like the part where he has the problem telling whether it's like nickels and dimes, and then later on he's like, oh, I'll bet a dime. And you can tell he broke the cigarette in half, and he's like, oh well, that's still a dime. It's two halves. He's like, that's not how that works. That's not you don't break a dime.
Oh right, yeah, exactly. This deserves a remake where everyone except Chief is played by Muppets. And those are the Letterboxd reviews. One-liners for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Follow the show, a Letterboxd Movie Night Extravaganza. That's Forrest over there. I, of course, am Conan Neutron. Follow me as well. J. Andrew World over in this box over there is on it. Kristina is on it now as well. She needs friends, so go be friends with Kristina and convince her to use the site more. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Marina, I don't think you're on Letterboxd, right?
I'm not. No.
Marina's got
social
one
media
Letterboxd.
site you're not on.
I gotta do it.
She's too busy
I
to
need
be on
cyberbullied.
Letterboxd.
I need to be
Is that-
cyberbullied.
She'd be cyberbullied about your movie opinions as well as being a woman. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it.
Under
Live for
communism, there will be no women having movie opinions. That's literally
Through communism, there will be no more women.
Communism got bad and boring.
We will abolish
really-
women.
I really wish I had the Bernie Sanders clip to play that goes, the American people are tired of women.
Oh yeah. That's good stuff. J. Andrew, Public Defender World, take it away with the plugs.
All right, if you're watching us right now on Twitch, do the Twitch thing. Subscribe if you can. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for free for you. That helps us out. Thank you. If you're watching us on YouTube, do the YouTube things. Hit that bell. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Hit that comment button. Comment. Say something cool. Because every once in a while, we get some great comments, and we appreciate that.
Once every 6 months.
Ring that bell like McMurphy's skull got drilled into. Exactly.
Oh fuck! Why? Why would you do that?
Yeah, lobotomize yourself with YouTube. YouTube has turned my brain into my frontal lobe into no. Anyways, once you have to liquefied your frontal lobe with YouTube, I highly encourage you to go to our Patreon and subscribe that way too. That also helps us out, gets you access to bonus episodes like what we're going to be recording right after this.
Yes, exactly. Well, also, plenty of great YouTube comments tonight. So please keep that going. We like it, even if we don't immediately.
Oh, I meant like the comments under it, because people react to the chat and I love it. But I was talking about like actually on the videos. It doesn't happen as often. Although someone the other day discovered our channel and then in big letters wrote lots of good stuff here on like episode 2.
Wow, just you wait. There's like 7,000 more hours of it, friend. You
Incredible.
think it's good now?
Comments on like episode 23. Yes, seen too much. Done.
I'm done. I'm out.
Unsubscribe.
I'm hard out. It's enough. Enough for me.
I don't like your opinion on Reagan, so I'm out. I fit him in there somewhere. I did. I worked. It worked.
I hope you're very proud of yourself because it was not the least bit forced at all. It was good.
Which is weird because Reagan actually did shut down mental institutions as governor of California in the 60s.
He absolutely did.
And we didn't discuss that.
That's how Conan got out.
Right, exactly. It's usually at a very young age. In fact, I think it was before I was born. But anyway.
Yeah, that was how his parents met, actually.
It's a more plausible story than you might be led to believe. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go to the after party after this. So I want to go to I put the link in the private chat, so anyone that wants to join in on that on the panel can. But I want to go to final thoughts about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. We might actually make it underneath 2 hours for this episode. Marina, starting with you, final thoughts about this. Anything you want to add?
Always take your medicine. That's all I've got. Take your pills. No, this is a great movie. It's
some of those were vitamins. I'm calling that out.
My psychiatrist told me to take these vitamins with these meds to make them work better.
That's how it works. Yeah. But yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a fantastic film. It feels like a play. It has incredible acting, and Jack Nicholson is obviously like mentally unwell, and that's why he did it this well.
It wasn't acting, as it turns out. Yeah.
All right, Kristina, final thoughts, ideas, etc.
I have advice for those who are on bipolar medication. Please take selenium. It helps. Also, too, this movie's phenomenal. I mean, I love Jack Nicholson. I love Louise Fletcher. Everything. Love Danny DeVito. Love Chucky. I mean, as you know, for some of us who've spent time institutionalized, it's a bit of a wake up call for sure. And like everybody's experience is different. Clearly, you know, this film does not really glamorize what it's like, but I highly recommend this film. And yeah, I mean, it's I can see why it's one of the like greatest films of all time.
I think Selenium Gomez does a great job in Only Murders in the Building. By the way, I think she's a fantastic actress.
I love that show.
It's a good
I'm
show.
actually
Yeah.
friends with the guy who writes that show, and I'm like, you can get me in contact with Selena Gomez, can you?
I'd be more like you can the rest of the cast. I mean, God, you know, Steve Martin.
Yeah, like Martin Short, like
Martin Short. Come on, movie night extravaganza. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, I haven't started. I'm eventually going to start watching it. I haven't started watching it because it reminds me too much of like something like my NPR watching dad would just be overly enthusiastic about.
That's part of the thing, right? And that's why
it's really good.
Selenium Gomez is so good in it for many reasons, but not the least of which is they kind of lay into like, you know, the generational divide, like what people get out of these shows, etc. It's good. It's a good show, dude.
All right. Well, I also haven't been watching that
nobody's
many.
talked about it before, so this is the first time I've ever heard anybody say anything about the show.
I made a Facebook post about it, and I don't go on Facebook that much, and like it got more interactions than anything I've done the last 2 years.
You don't go on Facebook that much. That's not what I've heard, but from us having a nonstop chat on Facebook.
Oh, Messenger doesn't count. I mean,
all right. Yeah,
I'd rather do email. I'm talking about Facebook for its stated intention of data mining, what everyone's into, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
I mean, I basically post my crap and get on with my life. Like, hey, doing this thing, cool, thanks.
So, Conan, you got some final thoughts
on Facebook? Yeah, I don't think it's so great. I think it might be bad.
I heard Sheryl Sandberg thought that, you know, if women were in charge of every country, there would be no more wars. So, I think Facebook might be having a productive effect on society.
More female war criminals.
More female Facebooks.
Female book. That's what we call it.
It'd be Facebook, but with like the Y, where it's like women instead, but like they'll put a Y in there as a vowel. Anyway,
it'd be Facebook, but instead of asking like how are you doing or whatever, they'd be like, no, really, how are you doing? I really want to know.
Yeah.
How do you really feel about this post?
We won't tell anyone, and then they post it publicly.
So, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one of my favorite movies of all time. I was reminded of that talking about it for this show and preparing for it. You know, it's amazing to me how of its time that it is, not just in the way that mental health is treated, but you know, the casual misogyny of our hero, McMurphy. But the back and forth with him and Nurse Ratched would be stellar no matter what the rest of the story was. But this is really an ensemble piece. Everybody does a fantastic job, fully realized characters. And as mentioned by one of the Letterboxd reviews, like, you know, like quite the turnaround at the end. It makes for a very compelling story, and I think that it's a movie that still holds up. And I get it when people are like hard out because you're like, hey man, that guy's a statutory rapist. I'm not going to get behind him. Like, well, you don't have to like someone wholesale and everything they are to understand that this is a work of fiction, and you can enjoy it based on that. And it is, as long as you are able to turn that part of your brain that I have to immediately identify with the person that's on the screen wholesale as like a figure to be emulated, then this is a great story because nobody's perfect in this story. But people are in this situation for a variety of reasons, some unfairly, some potentially fairly, with unjust things done to them. And it doesn't really have any objective morality to it. You're just presented with all the facts at hand and the actions that come from the facts. And I've seen this movie a lot. And I think it's really good. Obviously, the Academy agreed. And I think it launched a lot of careers in a lot of ways, and also took careers that were like, people that were known for being good character acting and brought them to a greater audience and in some cases typecast them. But this movie's great. And I stand by it.
I will say though that the fact that he is in there for statutory rape does bring in the antisocial personality disorder aspect of it, which is that it's someone who's unable to follow the rules that society sets out in front of you, and obviously it's in a very dark way, but it does set out that thing that whether or not he was he's been arrested for assault 5 times, and you know what I mean, and then he has the amazing line where he's like, well, I forget which boxer he mentions during that, but he's like, he has 40 fights under his belt and no one's arrested him once. It's this idea that, what you do doesn't really matter with outside of that context, and you're unable to follow the rules of society, but these rules don't apply throughout society, right? Like he could have been a boxer and also committed statutory rape and maybe people would have covered it up. No, but
McMurphy would definitely have a YouTube show and be among the echelons of the Ben Shapiro's and Jordan Petersons of the world, unfortunately. And
I think Tim Pool's trying to cosplay as him.
I'm working on getting some cosplays done myself.
But Andy, you got some final thoughts?
Yeah, I think that Kristina should have cosplayed Nurse Ratched because she has epic hair.
Yeah, but okay. I said I dressed up as what I wore when I was in the institution, but whatever.
No, I wore.
Typical Andy criticizing women. He always does it.
That's all I'm doing.
Hey,
anti-feminist Andy.
Wait a minute. If we ever do Promising Young Woman.
Oh, yeah, that's a good film. I like that movie.
Yeah, we gotta do that one because I'm getting that cosplay, the little sexy stripper nurse cosplay.
Rob did the Oscars, by the way. Rob.
Yes.
All right, Andy, is that you want to have?
No, I was actually gonna just really quickly.
No, she just really wanted to comment on Kristina's hair. That's it.
Yeah. I just figuring since we were, whatever. Anyways, I'm not gonna explain the joke. When I was in high school, I actually first saw this film as part of a class. So I had this broken down into 45-minute chunks to watch this movie.
Radically different 45-minute chunks.
Yes. Man, that last day of class was weird.
I was gonna say that last episode must have been bizarre. Is this the same movie? No.
Yeah.
No way.
But it's certainly, and it's weird to watch it in high school too. Like who shows this movie in high school? We also watched.
It was me. I chose that movie.
We also watched both versions of Cape Fear. So
Ooh.
This is some class.
Yeah, it was a wild class.
Those are good.
Sounds like my experience on Give Them an Argument.
I had to draw that shit for him. Anyways, but it was actually kind of nice, kind of revisiting it because. Honestly, this is not a movie you really want to go back and rewatch too often. I might have seen it once or twice between high school and now, but I don't legit. Sometimes I just put on movies and just have them on in the background. So I don't know if I've seen it really since, or actually really watched it. So it was actually kind of nice revisiting this, even though I remembered every single beat at the end. This was
it's much harder to watch when you know what's coming at the end.
Yeah,
watching it for the first time, it's like, all right, this is this is kind of fun, and then knowing what happens at the end, you're like, oh fuck, this is all leading up to something that I don't want to see.
Yeah, it is just.
I did not think it would end like that.
Well, I knew it was going to end something had to happen to McMurphy at the end of the film. I just didn't know what it was. And then when we got there, it was just like, whoa.
Well, the bill has to come due, right? Like it's it's a whole movie of fuck around and find out, I guess.
Yes, and Ratchet never got in trouble for killing Billy.
Yeah.
Which she did.
All right. Well, I have some final thoughts, and I've written them down. How about it, you freaks, lunatics, mental defectives? Let's hear it for Movie Night Extravaganza. Back in action.